Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is February 15th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery here across the Pacific Ocean. There's Alaska, BC, Washington. Looks like a fairly strong frontal system here, but it will be falling apart by the time it reaches the Pacific Northwest. Energy moving through Canada and cutting off and moving down off the California coastline here. Then we're going to develop some ridging over the Gulf of Alaska, and everybody knows what that means. We're going to start to flirt with some colder air here as we go on into early and mid next week. We'll take a look at those details coming up here in a moment. Looking out across the Western Pacific, strong low pressure system developed out here across some of the very western portions of the Aleutian Islands here. It's going to be kind of a pattern that's going to be going on for the next week or so, though, as we bring some strong systems out here and bring that ridging across the Gulf of Alaska, which is going to allow for some cold air to try to penetrate down into the Pacific Northwest as we go on into the extended. Now, taking a look here, this is what can be expected over the next few days. You can see you woke up this morning. It's nice and chilly out there across the area. Everything frozen out there. We're going to thaw out today, and then we're going to refreeze for many areas tonight again, down to the 20s. A lot of the Puget Sound, Willamette Valley as well. Going on into a Thursday, another warm up there, then a cool down again. You can kind of see the diurnal and nocturnal cycle here, thaw and refreeze as we go on in through the weekend shown there. So just have a heads up for that when you are out and about here across Pacific Northwest over the next few days. Now, this is the wider look at things here. Yesterday afternoon's European run, Alaska, BC, Washington, Oregon, California here. Now, you can see the frontal system out here falls apart quite a bit here by the time it gets to the Pacific Northwest. A little bit of snow for the mountains here coming up here. More than a little bit, but you know how it goes for the mountains. They're pretty used to it. Another system moves down through Saturday night into Sunday. Another one again on in through Sunday night into Monday morning shown there. And then a much more sinister looking low pressure system sets up here. Look at this Arctic high over Alaska, the Yukon, Northwest BC, pushing down towards the Pacific Northwest here. Very strong gradients here. And where this low pressure system sets up based on the trajectory of the upper level winds here is going to make all the difference on who sees how much snowfall and what. But the cold air is probably coming here, folks. We have very good confidence. All the models are showing it as we go on into early next week. More on that here in a moment. Now, this is looking at things really closely over the next couple of days. I mentioned the snowfall for the mountains coming up. The European actually even showed a little bit of lowland snowfall towards northwest Washington, southwest BC as you go on in through Thursday night into Friday morning. Shouldn't be too big of a deal there, but you can see some mountain snows for BC down to the Washington Cascades here over the next 90 hours. Now let's take a wider look here at the extended forecast. Here's the northern hemisphere. North Pole is there. There's Alaska, Washington, Oregon. There's the Hawaiian Islands. There's Japan way over here. Russia is there. That deep low pressure system here is off that point of the Aleutian Islands there that I showed on the infrared satellite imagery there, setting the stage, building this ridge across the Gulf of Alaska here. Going to continue to bring some strong systems out here across the Western Pacific, continuing to have this ridge dominate the Gulf of Alaska. And then look, it allows this cold flow to just race over the top of that ridge down into the Pacific Northwest there. Nicely carved trough across Pacific Northwest as we go on in through next week here. We're going to be watching that one closely over the next few days. It's got potential to bring some widespread snowfall and very cold conditions here across Pacific Northwest, even through late February, I should say there. Now taking a look at the GFS. This is 30,000 feet, 300 millibars. You can see the system out here now splits a bit. You can see some of the energy move down towards California there. Troughing out here across the Western Pacific, driving the strong ridging here. Then the strong trough emerges here. This polar lobe comes across Pacific Northwest. And you can really see that good model agreement. This is the GFS. What I just showed you was the European, but it's showing that trough setting up shop here. Some very cold air potential here for the Pacific Northwest coming up here. This was hot off the presses, 207 hours there for the GFS. This is last night's European control run here. So there's the system we just dealt with. Cutoff low down towards California here. Ridge builds. We get a couple systems moving on the backside of that ridge, and then the big polar low opens up on us there. And then as we go out and extend it a little bit more, you'll notice we're not done. Looks like we're going to continue to be in a cold pattern here all the way through the end of February into early March coming up here. But we'll worry about those later. Now looking here, this is the European. This is the 850 millibar streamline and temperature anomaly. There goes the ridging here, allowing for this very cold air to set up shop across British Columbia here as we go on in through mid and later next week, you can see it really entrenched across British Columbia here. And it depends on the trajectory, like I've always mentioned here, depending on who sees what kind of snowfall amounts coming up. But that's the fun of it. We'll watch this come in day by day and try to pinpoint some of these details. Now looking at the Canadian model, we saw what the European and the GFS had to say there. There goes the split. There goes the ridging here. There goes a weak system down across the backside of that ridge there. And then the more substantial polar lobe opens up over the Pacific Northwest here as we go on in through next week there. And then you can see that signal continues all the way on through the end of February into early March here on the Canadian model as well. So good model agreement. This is the ensemble mean, the average of all the Canadian ensemble runs. Now this is a new product here from the Weather Belt. The blue line is the control line here. That is the initial conditions, best we understand them. This is Seattle-Tacoma, total snow. And you can see the green line is the mean, the average of all of these ensemble members here. Each one of these gray lines is an individual ensemble run that has their initial conditions tweaked from what we believe the initial conditions to be. So we're kind of getting an idea of where our errors may lie. And you can see pretty good agreement on Seattle picking up some snowfall in the current pattern shown by the models right now. But we'll watch this go day by day coming up here, of course. This is looking at Vancouver here. You can see that colder air arriving here on in through early to mid next week coming up. There are some pretty big solutions there snow-wise, including the control run calling up over 23 centimeters of snowfall there, which would be, 8-9 inches or so there. A little bit of lowland snow potential as we go on into Thursday night into Friday morning here as well. Shouldn't amount to too much is what it looks like right now. But now watch this. I think that they introduced this model here, and I think that this should be centimeters if I'm not mistaken here, because if that was millimeters, that would only be 2.5 centimeters there. But I think they'll probably correct that error as they go. But anyway, here is the snow plume here for Vancouver. Just pretend like this is centimeters here anyway. Now taking a look here, this is the European mean for the 850 millibar temperatures. This is an average of all those individual 50 ensemble runs. And you can clearly see a very dynamic, powerful signal here across Northwest North America. Very cold area. I mean, you can see the surface low off the coast of Astoria there, which is pretty prime for some kind of snowfall event across a lot of the area of the Pacific Northwest. This is looking at the GFS ensemble mean, 850 millibars again. So let's see. Here we go with the ridging here. A couple weak systems move on the backside of that ridge before the big Arctic air starts to arrive. But let me update so we can take a look at that. Are we totally updated here? Okay, here we go. Bear with me on the computer here, and we have it. Let's see how far we can get out here now. So there we go, out past hour 160 or so. You can clearly see that big signal there for that Arctic air bearing down across British Columbia, and that surface low kind of setting up somewhere off the Washington, Oregon coastline there as we go on in through mid and later next week. So very intense signal here coming up. I have high confidence that we are going to get colder than normal here coming up through next week. Will we get snowfall? Who will get snowfall? Those are questions that will still need to be answered. Now, this is Spokane National Weather Service talking about turning colder next week. You can see the experimental product showing moderate for basically east of the Cascades here, slight potentially all the way up to the coastline, including portions of California there as well. This is the same map there also. This is risk for heavy precipitation here. They do have slight all the way up the west coast here. Risk of heavy snow includes the Cascades, Siskiyous down for the Sierra Nevada here, Intermountain West as well. Risk of high winds, they're just kind of figuring that maybe this polar lobe coming down and some of this activity may bring eventually a windstorm or across some of the Pacific Northwest here. But again, low confidence in any one scenario as of right now. This is 8 to 14-day temperature outlook issued yesterday, February 22nd through 28th. You can clearly see this below average signal here across the Pacific Northwest. So the National Weather Service is on board with the arrival of this colder air as well. Week 3 to 4 temperature here. This was put out February 10th here, but you can kind of see that signal has been out there for at least a few days now. This is the same thing here about precipitation. Now, this is looking at the Pacific North American Oscillation. We are in negative territory, and that's kind of highlighted by the system we just went through here, and we were supposed to stay there all the way through early March here, according to the European ensemble there. Let's look at the Canadian. Same thing there. Let's look at the GFS. Same thing there. And you can look at the European deterministic there as well. So very strong signal for this ridging over the Gulf of Alaska and this cold air to come down on the backside of it and impact the Pacific Northwest. our interesting winter continues here across the region. So anyway, yeah, we'll do this again tomorrow. I mean, we'll keep working out these details. We'll try to pick out trends on how this Arctic air is going to interact with the northwest portion of North America here. And we'll just work it out day by day for now. But confidence is increasing in a very cold air mass trying to get down here into the Pacific Northwest. So anyway, hope you guys are having a good day, and we will do this again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys then.